Hello, and welcome back to Synergy Speaks. Today, we'd like to talk about expectations and aspirations and how those concepts may grind up against who you actually are. And how you may not actually find that out until you find yourself in a situation where you have aspired to something or you have expected something, or perhaps someone has expected something of you. And it has actually forced you to examine really who you are, how you operate, and how that may or may not be able to jive with what you are expected to do, whether that's taking a new job or accepting a new role in life. We're always being challenged with expectations coming from the outside as well as expectations coming from the inside, like an expectation that came from myself for myself yesterday. I expected this yesterday, but does that mean that I should expect it today? And how do these differing versions of ourself synergize into having like a more concrete idea of who we are and how we would exist in any sort of a situation? So with that said, my name is Dylan, your host with the bad microphone. Thomas, you're our host with a good microphone. Why don't you say some things?
Hey, everybody. So, yeah, I love your intro there, Dylan. Just jumping in and giving us a rich palette to work with. So, yeah, and that, you kind of sparked off from our conversation before we recorded about my new job at a new school and going in there, all hopeful and all ready to work, and in terms of like, oh yeah, this many hours and this many classes, and then things go differently. We're challenged in many ways. Sometimes physically, our bodies even respond to situations where it's like being shot out of a situation, which tends to happen to me sometimes. And I'm sure many of the listeners here experience that too. It's like there's a synchronicity, there's sort of an intelligence to the synchronicities that occur in our lives, which, there's just this great mystery about. But I kind of use that word intelligence to describe these sort of interplays, this sort of synergistic plays, these lilas. This word is, I think, from Sanskrit called which means divine play. So I've been experiencing this with my new job and work, and I'm not sure exactly where to begin, but well, maybe I'll just kind of go big picture. Yeah, so I was invited to this new school to be a teacher there. And, I didn't really even apply. I showed up to an open house for the school. And at the time, I didn't really live near the school, but I was doing some work near the school. So I was kind of in the neighborhood, and, I was trying to get some nice music happenings going on. And so I was invited to the open house. I showed up, and, beautiful land, nature, land that has these school facilities and campground and so on. And then, so I was invited to be the sort of arts teacher, music, art, drama, just sort of oversee that part of the school. And it's been which is really, I think, spoke to who I am and what I want to do in this world. So I kind of was really excited and honored by that invitation. And it's been a real ride since saying yes, even to the point where it looked like for a while there I wasn't going to be a teacher at the school. And in this sort of play of things not going well, my body responding to, there was some painting going on in the school, like, the facilities are rather old, so we're trying to revive it. And I tend to have a reaction to certain paints and certain dust in the air. So, and this kind of freaked some people out, and because there's all these kind of issues of liability that come up in people's minds, which of course, I'm not interested in collecting on any sort of mistakes that are made in that kind of realm. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, but we came through all that, which is a real credit to the integrity of the people who run the school, that we could have, a real kind of falling out for a while there, but we kind of kept it together enough to actually really come through. So it reminds me of something that someone in this tribe said, Charlotta once said, was like, when you have those falling outs with people and then you repair them, it's like, there's just such a beauty to that. Like it shows the trust is earned then. So, and I think that's part of, I think, what I'm experiencing with the school, because with the school, we're trying to do a good school here. And in our world, schools, education needs a lot of healing. I think we're all very much aware of this, many of us. So the fact that, the organizers and I have gone through this difficult period and have kind of found our feet on the ground still together, I think it shows a lot in this direction of healing, that this could be a foundation for moving forward. So yeah, so the journey unfolds, and so what I'm in the midst of is bringing in another arts teacher who kind of does more the other side of the arts. So I'm more of like a music and visual arts and kind of poetry. Those are kind of my passions. Whereas my teaching partner will be, he's more of a creative phys ed kind of guy, circus arts and drama and these kinds of things. So, and I think there's going to be a nice balance that occurs there with each of us giving our energy and offering the students in the school what we have to offer. And so it's almost just like bringing more energy into the mix, because I think for me, the arts really have a real transformative opportunity for each of us. Like really, like yesterday, it was quite an experience for me because I was preparing some classes for art specifically, whereas I mostly do music so far. And just doing my own art in the process of preparing for the class, I just found myself really energized and empowered, and that happens too when I play music. It's just like such a medicine for me. So I think both me and my teaching partner, Jesse, I think we're both going to be bringing the medicine we have. And, I think also something James True said in a recent High Magic, no, it was an Esoteric Journey, about the campground idea that the tribe's been talking about for a long time. And that was, he was saying how like the coordinators of the campground, the sort of teachers, the hosts, it's a lot of work for them to provide this sort of service. So he was saying like sort of like 3 days on, 4 days off for these teachers, just so they can kind of regain their energy. So it's been a process, right? Initially, it was going to be just me there, but it's clear to me, and my body's been telling me that I actually need a co-teacher to come in and support and bring his energy, and through this process, my own body's been telling me like yes. Certain symptoms go away when I kind of take these steps. So this is sort of this aspirations and expectations theme at work, right? In the process of working through that.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about no expectations. You literally didn't even expect to work there when you first visited. So everything has, in a way, I guess that's probably a benefit to your situation, is that from the jump there were no expectations at all, and then all of a sudden there were, and they didn't exactly correspond with how you felt. And so it's been, from at least just from my perspective, just hearing your updates, it sounds like pretty much everything was done in good faith, with the exception of maybe a couple things. But for the most part, that it was a committee, excuse me, trying to work out, well, exactly what would make sense for all parties, as opposed to trying, one trying to take advantage of the other, which is so often how things can go in, contracted teaching situations, when you're dealing with, maybe we'll say, more state involved schools, or even just corporate private schools or anything like that. There can be a little bit of sometimes it feels like a bait and switch, from the interview to the offer sheet and all that. I've found that I have had very little expectation placed on me since I started teaching, from like top down, which has allowed me to develop my own, I wouldn't even call it a curriculum. I've developed my own style of teaching, and I've developed my own values as far as one-on-one lessons goes, and sort of, how to instill certain values into a student. And what that, I mean that like literally, like just sort of what is valuable to you as a student in the pursuit of your goals, your stated goals. I mean, your stated goal can be stated verbally, or it can be stated by the fact that you're sitting here in this room week after week after week, looking at me with a guitar in your hand. So that has really afforded me the ability to be solitary in my I guess educational pursuits, which it has, I personally have gained a lot from that, because when I first started teaching and doing ensembles, so like band sessions, so the way that the company I work for works is that we offer lessons throughout the week, and then on the weekends we have band programs. I call them ensembles, but they're not really like ensembles. Like if you've been to music school, an ensemble is where everyone learns, gets assigned a piece of music, and then you come together at the ensemble and you rehearse, or you play for your professor, and then the professor gives you notes and you get graded on it, and then you have a recital at the end of the year. So we don't really do that so much, as we have the same basic concept, but we just call it more like a band setting. And you don't get graded every rehearsal. You have a gig at the end of the session. At the end of every 3 or 4 months, we book them to play at a local music venue. So it's as close you can get to, being in a actual cover band or something like that. But what that is like allowed me to do is really build an actual curriculum around the things that I find valuable to me as a professional player, as a professional musician, which is what a lot of the kids in this program are aspiring to be. And just like us, when we get into certain situations, we have expectations placed on us that may differ from what we are aspiring to be. Sometimes these kids don't even know what it is to aspire to. So it's been really great for me to be able to do all that, based on my own experiences, and not have to deal with someone else's input that may or may not be valid or relevant. Now, if I did have someone's input that was valid or relevant, my life could probably be a lot easier. But I'd be dishonest with you if I said that I wanted that. I like kind of have this it's my baby and I will suffer for it mentality, where it's a lot. I mean, I'm there 5 days a week. I'm there. I deal with a lot of very strong personalities, and so I have to be the strongest one. And I've found out how to do it, but it's challenging to maintain grace and still do that sometimes. Like, for example, last night, I'm not really proud of how I was. I wasn't bad. I wasn't terrible, but we had a rehearsal with the most advanced kids, and I was just not. I wasn't feeling great, like emotionally, just myself, and it made it so that I had to be the alpha in a room of strong personalities with kids who have a lot of skill, who are also teenagers. So they're fucking goofy, and trying to like corral all of that energy. When I have energy personally, it's a lot different. But when I don't, I can get really short and I can get kind of sarcastic and in a way that I think is not conducive toward, let's say, regular or the expectations of an educational program, right? It's like, this isn't what I came here for. But on the other hand, I'm a human being, and these kids are all these are the kids who really want to play. They want to play, go to music school, or just go right into playing professionally. They're going to deal with human beings like me. I am one, and I'm trying my goddamn best to help them every single day. And sometimes I'm going to be a dick, and that's just kind of life. It's like sometimes you catch someone in a bad mood, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but the thing I'm trying to get at is that I've had recently some, not expectations, but some ideas floated from corporate to me, and I've shot them down hard. And I've been able to do that because I've established almost 8 years, no, over 8 years now, of doing this my own way with success, with measurable success in an educational sphere. So when some corporate fuck tries to tell me that I should start using an app, a proprietary app that they've developed so that they can scrounge up all this data and sell it to people, no, I don't have to. I'm kind of alluding to something that happened, but we were on a Zoom call, and this app thing came up, and it's been around for years, and maybe we'll spend a whole episode sometime, not a whole episode, but when we have more time, I can go more into it because it's a very interesting story. But long story short, it was suggested that I, as the music director, start kind of trying to enforce the use of this app through my teachers, to which I was like, you people are fucking insane. Are you retarded? Like, the reasons they were giving me for why we should use this app were nonsense. Kids forget their notebooks. I'm like, yeah, that's a bad behavior. That is bad behavior that you as a teacher need to help correct. Where do you get off thinking that's not your responsibility as a teacher to say to this kid, yo, you forgot your notebook twice in a row. What the hell is wrong? Like, we're not having another lesson. We're not doing something new. We're doing the thing you did in your notebook that you didn't practice this week. That's being a teacher, teaching someone, instilling values. But no, you can just tell them, no, log on to the app. That way the notebook paper never gets lost because it's always in the app. And I'm like, yeah, it's always in the app on the phone with fucking Snapchat and Instagram. You people are nuts. Yeah. But the point is that I was able to really subvert someone else's expectations for me, because they have an expectation that, like, look, we've talked to a bunch of music directors all over the place. They usually don't push back. So we just say what we say and then it's all good. And I'm not that guy. So it can work both ways, really. It's like sometimes the expectation can come in a sense that forces you to maybe adjust and have to change how you're behaving to accommodate it, or to maybe it illustrates to you more of your own character. But other times, no, an expectation gets thrown your way and you have enough bandwidth to just kind of bat it out of the way and say, I don't know how to deal with that shit. What is this? No, thank you. And I think that's a good place of power to try to aspire to, if you can get there. I managed to get there every once in a while. Last night I did not get there.
Yeah, cool. It makes me think that, when we enter into a project, creative project, or a job of some sort, and we have these sort of ideals, or this, we're aspiring to something beautiful and flowing and creative, and inevitably these these obstacles, these vitriolic situations pop up, and then we have to navigate them, right? And sometimes it's the time to walk away, right? You see that, well, the ideals are not going to work out, right? I think of a teacher of consensus decision making I once knew, or I took some sessions under, and he said, consensus means when the parties all can come to consensus, they can agree upon something essential that they can actually move forward with. And sometimes you can't achieve that. So that means that someone is going to maybe drop from that group. And that's fine too, right? That just is like the natural flow of life, that this happens. So yeah, so it's interesting to hear kind of where you're at in your school organization, and how it's very different from where I'm at, right? Like I'm kind of literally entering in. And while I've been invited, it's also like been really rocky, even just starting. So, and, I've been navigating that, right? And I've been laying down what's acceptable to me. And that's rocked some individuals in the school, but at the end of the day, we're actually moving forward together. So it's been an interesting process, and yeah, and it really, I mean, there's growth that happens through all of this, right? And yeah, so we'll see how it continues to go forward. And I also think of sort of the nice synchronicities that occur along the way, these nice little opportunities that pop up along the track of doing this one thing. I thought I was doing this, arts teaching at this school, which I am, but along the way I've found a new land to put my tiny home, which has been built, and I'm going to go grab that this weekend and bring it down to closer to this area where there's a lot of cool opportunities popping up, right? And the land is owned by a really wonderful drummer, and and then it's connecting to all these other folks that I've met, including. So this drummer, one of his favorite bass players to play with, is one of my favorite bass players to play with. I used to play with him many years ago, back in the day. So that's kind of awesome. We're going to start playing together. And I actually met this drummer at a festival this summer, where I actually met my co-teacher, Art Jesse, who I'm bringing in. So it's kind of an interesting thing too, when you kind of go to these festivals, especially after the last few years we've had, where festivals have been kind of kaput, to sort of meet these bright stars who have some energy and want to create. And kind of like, as soon as I met Jesse, I was like, oh, brother. So so it's quite an interesting journey, and it kind of makes me think, as much as I can try to line up things nicely, it's at the end of the day, the energy of what I aspire to is sort of leading me along, right? There is an intelligence. It's helping me meet the people who really resonate with that energy, and also are trying to create something beautiful. And so it gives me hope when I sit back and actually look at the whole scene, even though these very vitriolic moments pop up here and there.
Yeah, and I think we find what we're looking for wherever you are. Like when I was working in the office, I found the other people who didn't give a fuck about the office, and we're just like, dude, we need to just do as little work as possible, leave at 4:50 if you can, I found those people. You know what I mean? Like I found them. We had, there was not a lot. I mean, there were probably more, but like then the overachievers, the ones who are like, no, I want to become management, they find themselves. They find each other too. And they also find the like the higher ups to suck up to in this corporate structure, so that when an opening does arise, you know, I mean, they've been putting their hat in that ring since before that opening even happened. And just that idea of just wherever you place yourself in whatever energy you put out, you're going to attract a similar vibe, I think, from other people within the context of where you are. So when you're in, it's like I don't think, I mean, maybe jealous isn't the right word, but I admire your ability to like go to a festival and meet people. I don't have that. Just me personally, my own personality type, I would never do that. Just, I wish that I was the type of person to do that. So maybe that means that I can aspire to do this, but it's just really not my thing. Like I'm not about big gatherings. I don't like them. I don't like being at them, I should say. But I really wish that I did sometimes, because I do think that if I could just go and extend my energy, then I would be able to draw people to me that I would be able to relate to. And maybe it is that simple. And I don't know, perhaps it's my own reservations about being open. Even though I feel like I'm fairly open. I don't know. That's kind of a conundrum for me. But I've done that as well in my teaching situation where, like, I relate. This might sound weird. I relate to a 9-year-old girl. Like, we had a lesson and she's 9. She doesn't really want to learn how to read. Fine. She's 9. She's a 9-year-old girl and she's interested in drums. Like, pick your fucking battles. She doesn't want to read. Great. She can play by ear. Like, she doesn't have technique. She doesn't have mechanics, but she can hear something on a record and she can try her best to recreate it on a drum set with pretty good accuracy. So why would I want to get in the way of that? So her lesson is she's in one of these groups. So she has to play Johnny Be Good on drums, and she has to play Think by Aretha Franklin. So her lesson is me and her playing. I play guitar, I play Johnny Be Good on guitar, and she plays drums. And I'm not kidding. Like, we were actually playing together. We were jamming, we were connecting, we were relating on a level that I don't relate to most adults on. Like, meaning that we were both fully in love with what we were doing. Like, we were sharing like a yes, this is awesome. Like, this is so fun. And it was. And then at the end of her lesson, I was like, all right, Jane, I just want you to play whatever comes to mind. I'm just going to make something up. And I just started playing a riff. And then within 2 bars, she came in. And she was just doing this cool groove. And then I went to a different part, and then she went to a tom groove. Like, we were jamming. I literally jammed with her. And I'm like, holy shit. We relate. You and I see eye to eye. We don't have to use words. We don't need to. It's just like, you get it and I get it, and it's enough. And I really think that there's something maybe with adults where there's more of a I think mostly it's that adults don't even know who they are most of the time. And so how can you open yourself up to relate to other people when the question of knowing thyself has been muddied for however long, right? Like, how many different, I mean, I'm 31. I've been like, since I was 21, I don't know, I've been like a different guy every year, like a totally different dude. And and I would say that it's been in the pursuit of really learning who I am, and that I know myself as well as I ever have now. But maybe that's not true, because I think that kids know themselves. They don't question themselves the way that adults do. So that idea of putting energy out, and I think about it too. It's like moods. I was musing on this last night. Like mood. What if a mood is an entity? It's a daemon, if you will, in the ether.
Uh-huh.
And when you express a certain energy, a certain frequency from a certain chakra or wherever, you extend that outward, that becomes like a two-way tunnel, right? So that you
Mm-hmm.
extend it outward, and but anything that can meet that frequency will then have access directly to your body through that output. So like I think about this with like giving into moods, because like sometimes you might want to really give into like a self-pity, or you might want to give into a self-righteousness, or is some sort of indignance. And what it feels like to me is like you shoot out energy from some part of your body, and then you receive this entity that we call a mood. And then the moods don't have bodies, right? So they can only act through your terminal form. So you accept this mood because it resonates with the energy that you're putting out, and then the mood acts. You think it's you, right? But you're in a bad mood, so it's just me, and I'm in a bad mood. But truly, it's this entity mood that is really acting through you because you've actually allowed it into your facilities, so that you. And that can work in both ways. I think creativity is the exact same fucking thing. It's just you're for the frequency that you are releasing is going toward that, as opposed to going towards sadness or frustration or elation or excitement, even, right? Or anxiety or nervousness. It's like these are all little moods floating around the ether, as well as like the song that you're trying to write and the lyric that you're trying to think of, and the chord change that you're trying to hear, or that you can hear in your head but you can't figure out what it is on the instrument. Like learning how to direct that energy, I think, is really where we would find like how to maybe manifest things with more intention, rather than, like in my case, I just sort of end up finding myself in situations where I'm like, shit, I'm really connecting with this 9-year-old girl right now. This is awesome. This is really cool. That might sound creepy
Right.
as fuck to someone else, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's a completely human, on a human to human level. I understand music, she understands music, so we understand each other. It's just that simple.
Yeah. And I think with children, they are open to jumping in with these energies and flowing with these different energies, right? Whereas I think what you were talking about with adults is like, you know, things get very scripted and very like there's only a few roles that are sort of acceptable as adults, right? And I think, you know, being a teacher in a classroom, you know, there's a natural limitation that kind of comes, you know, just expectations from society and so on, that we sort of we only allow ourselves to play in certain energies and frequencies, whereas that really blocks the flow of what you're talking about, in these sort of different moods and daemons and the creative flow that can come from that, right? So, you know, I mean, that's probably the main reason that I love working with kids so much, is that they're just kind of ready to tap in, and they don't stop themselves as much as adults. And so, you know, I think of this one little girl in one class. She's probably like 7 or 8, and she's quite shy. And you know, I was a shy kid, so there's just something about the shy energy that's very, very interesting to me. I think it's incredibly rich, you know, whereas most adults kind of go with the societal um, norm of like, there's something a little bit off about being shy and quiet, right? There's a very much an expectation to be kind of like um, boisterous and kind of social in a very, you know, kind of friendly and polite and upbeat kind of way. And I think shy kids get this sort of I guess this sort of shaming, but that's not quite the right word. It's sort of a judgment, actually, of like, what you are is actually not good enough, and you should really be different. You should be really go against your sort of your quiet nature and be more something else. Whereas I look at these quiet kids, these shy kids, as like just these almost like these oceans of like um inner worlds that can have these sort of daemons play, right? And they're very gentle worlds too, because they aren't taking up the space right away. They aren't uh they almost are maybe inclined not to, right? So there's probably the journey for a shy person is to actually take up the stage, and I think that's something that I'm learning from you, Mr. Dillon, is like you have this kind of strength and this presence and this power that I kind of aspire to. Whereas I think I've got more this kind of like open, gentle kind of uh, yeah, I guess I'll find myself at a festival, and without even really meaning to, I'll meet people, that I'll kind of tap into something there, or maybe I'm just willing to show up to the festival. I don't know. And by the way, I went to two festivals this summer, and the first one where I met these two men I spoke about, it was actually quite a small festival. It was called Coming Home, and it was the first time it happened. And I'm not sure how many people were there, maybe a couple hundred, but it was like it felt quite small, quite like just on someone's land. They just felt the need to have more of a festival vibe happening, and they offered their land for that, and it was quite beautiful. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. But yeah, this idea of tapping into the energies around and being open to them and being and it's interesting too to think about when they show up. Like I recognize in myself, I have almost like a knee-jerk reaction sometimes when these things show up. Like, let's say there's a kid in class who is just kind of talking all the time, very annoying, trying to get attention. My knee-jerk reaction is to almost shut that person out or shut them down. But I find if I just like take a moment, or I find maybe if I'm in the flow of it, I'll make a joke with the thing that comes up, and then suddenly there's like this connection that occurs with the kid where we're almost in the same playing field for a moment. So there's this moment of connection, and perhaps that's what they were seeking when they were making the noise, right? And then I find from there that something has changed, and it reminds me that when I think about teaching, that the relationship with the student is really, for me, the starting point where everything else can flourish from, So perhaps what I mean there is like there's a trust that has occurred between me and the student where we can play with these energies, with these daemons, It's like, we're good, so let's play, right? Whereas if that isn't happening, if I'm kind of trying to impose a certain regimen, or you need to learn this and you're not doing it, or whatever, it doesn't tend to go anywhere, And that tends to be the style of education that I see mostly in the world, Whereas I think success really comes with this sort of trust spot.
Yeah, and I think that it depends on like kind of who your parents are. I think, because we live in a radically different world than the one that our parents grew up in. At least I do. And I feel like how success is being measured is sort of changing. I think that funny money is getting funnier and funnier and funnier. And that, like, for people who are in that world, like I have some like middle upper class, like parents or students, you know, they've had the same job for like 35 years. Like they're making whatever, 150, 200,000 a year. They send their kid to a private school. So they are still like, well, yeah, my kid's going to, he's doing music because he likes music, but then he's going to go to college and he's going to get a degree and he's going to get a high paying job. And like, that's how the world works. Right. And it's like, for people who haven't had to question that, yeah, that's how the world works. But for those of us who have had to question that, success starts to become a different thing. Like for me, I never watched my family like become rich. Like that never happened. Or like I never saw like anyone make killer business decisions, right? It was always just sort of, the emphasis was on something else. The emphasis was on more like passions. Like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? What do you believe in? What do you know, there was like, I heard all the stuff of you have to have a backup plan or a plan B, but I just, I didn't listen to that. And I was allowed to just pursue music because that was what I was passionate about. And success was measured in just sort of how am I going to make this work? And I simply grinded it out until I made something work. And so my success has been measured, but from myself, just in how have I intentionally set goals and then met those goals. Like that's just sort of how I would measure success. And I think in order to do that, you need to have values and you need to understand what your values are. They need to actually come from within. They can't be prescribed by somebody else. You can have an idea from somebody else, someone that you look up to. You can maybe try to assess what their values are and then work them into your own situation. But ultimately, the real success of a situation comes from however you are rendering it, right? How whatever your goals are, whatever your aspirations are, if you are meeting them, you have succeeded. So for young people, I think to meet an adult who can kind of frame that for them, if they're not getting it somewhere else, it can be transformative and it can allow somebody to actually start to think for themselves, because they realize like, oh, wait a second, the authority figures don't actually know me. They think they know me because they know kids, but they don't know me. I know me. And this experience has allowed me to understand that me and my own opinions are valid and valuable because they define my values and they define how I'm going to go about meeting goals or setting expectations for myself, and then trying to meet those goals and even failing to meet those goals, and then assessing sort of where you are in relationship to those goals. That, I think, is something that it can become more about conquering one's own tendencies. And I think that that's something that, like, when you see a shy kid, a lot of adults assume why the kid is shy. They don't really care. Not that they don't care, but they don't really know how to dig in deeper. And the kid is shy, so the kid's not going to help them. So they have this assumption that the kid is shy because he doesn't want to be here or whatever. But as far as like really trying to lift those kind of kids up and just let them be themselves, I found the best thing to do is just, it's like Victor Wooten says, it's like if you have a bass lesson with this kid who's never played a bass before, he wants to lay the bass on the ground and play it like that. Who the fuck are you to tell him that's wrong? You know what I mean? That's Victor Wooten. He's like, who am I to tell this kid that that's wrong? It's like, you're Victor Wooten. That's who. But his point being that, like, no, the kid needs to explore that. He needs to find out that that's suboptimal. So I think that's really where it comes down to me, is just sort of making sure that you're not putting your own expectations and values on some kid who may have a completely different set that you're totally ignorant of because you haven't really burned the calories to really get to know them.
Yeah. And I love this idea of kind of giving them a tool that where they can measure their own success by their own, whatever their own goals or aspirations are. It's like, let's have a way of checking in on that, and I was going to say something else along those lines. Yeah. And to be someone who also, is following our own passions, right? Like I want to actually show the high school class the Rosetown site, the Rosetown being this sort of, you know, collection of art that the tribe has made and sent in and put together some newsletters. Um, like I kind of want to show them that, or you actually use this word frame when you were speaking, and of course your last track that you released is called Frame, right? And it's got a really cool video to go with it. So, and I think that, I mean, just intuitively, that just showing kids what we as teachers are doing for, just inspired as our own selves. I think that is probably as inspiring as anything that we could show them or teach them, or yeah, yeah. So we've actually come we have a hard stop today, as you know, Dylan. So
Yep.
we're gonna have to wrap up in a minute or two. Any final words?
No. You can find Frame and my other music on YouTube at Dylan's Lunar Medicine Show. I plan to release music every new and full moon. And if not music, I have some other ideas cooking, because we didn't get a chance to talk about that idea of the hard stop. But yeah, not confident that I'm going to be able to bang out a whole full mixed and mastered recording every 2 weeks. So you might see me force myself to get creative and try some other stuff. So yeah, that's Dylan's Lunar Medicine Show on YouTube.
There you go. Yeah. And the Rosetown site is rosetown.art. So yeah, we'll call it a day there. And I look forward to talking more about this sort of idea of the hard stop. And yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about this, because I think this is something that you clearly do well, is like give yourself goals and then achieve them, right? Which I think is an essential part of being an artist and a creative human being in this world. So yeah. So until next time.
Right on. Peace.
Right on. Peace, everybody.